The following story takes place in 1994 in Seaside, Oregon. I was driving home from Ashland after having visited some friends and had just passed Grants Pass. I checked my map and realized that I was better off trying to go through Seaside in order to get to my home city. I had about a 4-hour drive, but with my radio and a reliable car, I knew I could make it. I was in my 1976 Plymouth Volaré and had just filled up the tank. I knew I'd get about 20 miles to the gallon if I took the right turn-offs and made sure not to get on any detours or get lost. My 15-gallon gas tank should hold up, and after the servicing I'd done on the transmission, it should definitely be more efficient. The night was foggy and overcast, and the traffic was touch and go. Once I reached Eugene, the fog slowly lifted, but I started to feel hungry. Should I stop off at a rest point here or just wait until I get home where I can make the food I want, how I want, and the portions I want? Don't get me wrong. Nothing's wrong with a greasy spoon restaurant, but sometimes you want things your way. You don't want to make any small talk with the waitress, and you don't have the patience to go through the exercise of giving the other customers that acknowledging nod while you sit at the counter. Tonight, I just wanted to eat alone and go straight to bed. Should I stop, I wondered. I was about to put my foot on the brake lightly and veer off onto the exit, but decided against my stomach and judgment and carried on. And with each place I passed, my hunger gradually increased. I got to Salem and had to stop to use the bathroom. For some reason, I felt put off by the gas station food on offer. Maybe it was the after effect of seeing the abysmal state of the bathroom. The dank smell from hundreds of men's urine mingling in one room left my stomach churning. Now I was back on the road and the fog came again. It slowly thickened as I passed Portland, Vancouver, and then reached Seaside. I'd been through Seaside on a number of occasions, and one of my favorite things about it was the beach and the saltwater taffy. They had this traffic circle that most of the people would take on the summer holidays, and there you'd see famous people that had summer houses there. But with Seaside etiquette, you weren't supposed to take their picture or ask them for autographs. It just wasn't the done thing socially. I took the right turn and headed down the traffic circle. I was too late. I'd arrived at the onset of dusk, and the saltwater taffy shop, along with a number of other stores, was closed. Damn. Maybe better luck next time. I pulled up to park and brought one side of my car on the sidewalk and put it in park, the engine humming expectantly for my next move. I'm hungry, but I don't really feel like going into a diner or restaurant. A voice told me to carry on and get home, that I only had another 30 minutes and I'd be back at my place. For some reason, I decided against that voice and my better judgment, and resolved to look for a restaurant and take my food to go. That made sense to my mind and my stomach. I pulled out into traffic, left the traffic circle, and joined the main drag with the other cars. I saw a restaurant that was open, and it looked a bit upscale. They probably have takeout, my stomach urged me on. I parked just outside and got out. I tried to straighten my clothes. I'd spent so long in the car driving, I didn't want to look like I'd rolled out of bed or from behind some furniture. I had on a black beanie, gray and black checked Pendleton shirt, and some creased acid-wash Levi jeans with solid black Chuck Taylor Converse. Yeah, I looked clean and presentable, I thought, while examining myself up and down. I got to the door and found it open with pleasant smells coming from the restaurant. This really was upscale. It looked like it had a maitre d', and the guy looked really snazzy in his red jacket, bow tie, and black slacks. What a place. He looked over and saw me and came over immediately. "Sir, we've got a closed restaurant for a party that's booked the place." I know. But I saw the open sign and I just wanted to take an order to go. I don't want to dine in. Could I just order something as takeout? I'll pay in cash and I'll be out of your hair straight away. Please, man. When he gave me an assenting nod, I was happy. He showed me the menu and I tried to order something simple and non-fussy. Salmon with some salad, brown rice, and some herbs and spices sounded like a plan. This was good, and I could have some on the way and polish it off at the house. I'd go straight to bed after. Looks like tonight had worked out. I could imagine my stomach smiling at me and saying, "You see, you were worried for nothing. I told you we know best." I kind of chuckled to myself thinking about my stomach. The maitre d' told me I could wait in the car while the food is getting ready and that he'd wave from the window when it's time to come and get it. Then I could pay at the counter. I obliged and headed straight back to my car. I had the radio on and would look up from time to time awaiting the signal. The nightly news on this April night was solemn. The world was still reeling from the collapse of the Soviet Union. Eastern Europe was in crisis. And yet again, I had to hear about how there would be a worldwide computer crash in the year 2000 because of a global system error. They'd named it the Y2K, and everyone was chattering about it. And for the second or third time that day, there was talk about the Ruby Ridge incident and Randy Weaver and the ongoing investigation of the Waco siege. A lot of serious news tonight. This was going to be a dark ride home. I always looked forward to great days in history and wanted to hear who was born, died this day, or what wars happened. I looked up once more and saw the guy waving from the window. Great, food's ready. I turned the car off, grabbed my keys, and headed inside. There were two entrances, one to come inside the restaurant and one in the seating area. The maitre d' had coaxed me to wait at the first door, but it was a little bit drafty. I decided to come to the second door where it was a little bit toastier and warmer. Once inside, I could see that it was a packed house. People were really dressed up this evening. The women had hairstyles and dresses that looked like they came straight out of the 50s, or maybe the 40s. The makeup made me think it was the 40s. Some had furs they'd thrown over their shoulders, and the fancy red lipstick and dark eyeshadow gave them that Marilyn Monroe look. The men didn't disappoint either. They were all wearing dark suits with short haircuts, almost military and with a side part. Black boots, black jackets, and then I saw it. I thought I was mistaken. I had to be wrong. I looked left and right, and it was the same thing. All the men had it. On the left arm, just above the elbow, each man was proudly sporting a red armband with the swastika emblazoned in a white circle around it. These were not any normal party-goers. They were Nazis. Fourth Reich Nazis. I'd heard about Nazi sympathizers in Oregon and that there was a presence, but this was my first time encountering them. The Third Reich had fallen, but there was a body of men that believed the Reich could still be revived, so they started a movement. You had Fourth Reich skinheads, which were a more urban and rugged outfit. And then you had the more upscale form, which is what these guys were clearly demonstrating. I flashed back to how many clashes I'd had with skinheads, neo-Nazis, or similar groups in my youth, and felt a coldness rush over me. One man went by and saw me. Nothing stood out for me other than that I was not Nazi and I was not Aryan. And then we made eye contact. When we looked at each other, both of us stood there looking into the other's eyes as if trying to go into the very soul of the other. No one would move to the side. No one would give way to the other. I could hear the maitre d' in the background pleading with us to stop and asking me in a panic, "Sir, why did you come in the second door? I told you to come to the first door." I could see out of the corner of my eye that some other Nazis had stood up. Hell, outside of the maitre d' and the waiters, everyone in the establishment was Nazi. I knew there was absolutely no way I could win a fight against these numbers, but I also had to stand my ground and not appear scared, or this might embolden them to pounce on me. The maitre d' ushered me over to the counter by trying to gently grasp my arm and turn me. As I turned, I would not break eye contact with the man with the armband, and he would not with me. The entire atmosphere was super tense, and I'd even forgotten for a moment that I'd ordered food. When I finally snapped out of whatever trance I was in, I was at the front counter, but I had my left side facing the Reich and my right the counter. I did not want to turn my back on these guys for a minute. The whole room now felt different. The women no longer looked glamorous, but instead grotesque and mocking. Their smiles looked twisted and sinister instead of cheery and soft. I could see the maitre d' and his assistants had no armbands. I looked over the counter to see the kitchen staff. Some were Mexicans, but most were white. The maitre d' sauntered over to me. "You know, anyone can book the restaurant for private hire. We can't control who uses it if they pay. If we'd known in advance, I understood at that point. He'd not wanted these people here. They must have booked it without telling him this was the type of private hire he'd be in for at the place." I nodded in acknowledgement that he had nothing to do with this. He was a worker. The guys in the kitchen had nothing to do with it. My food came in the bags, and I had 2 extra soft drinks that I hadn't ordered. The maitre d' handed me the bags with both hands and said, "It's okay, don't worry about it, it's covered." I thanked him and headed out of the place, keeping a careful eye and checking right to left as I stepped out onto the street and got in my car. As I pulled off into traffic, I stared in the rearview mirror and back at the food resting on the passenger seat. Were the Nazis following me? Once I was well onto the road home, I knew they weren't following me. I learned that night that listening to my stomach could have cost my life, or at the very least, serious injury. If the maitre d' and the kitchen staff had been a part of that private hire and had their political views, no one would have ever known what happened that night. I'd probably just be reported missing as they disposed of my remains. But I'd made it out in one piece, takeout on the passenger seat, and headed homeward. In the future, I vowed to listen to that voice that tells me something, even if it goes against what my stomach wants. Just before reaching home, the radio broadcast concluded with "Great Days in History." I listened to all the men born on this day and stopped cold when I heard them mentioned. On this day, April 20th, 1889, Adolf Hitler was born. If you enjoyed this story and want more great content, please subscribe to High Class Gear, give us a like, and hit the notification bell so you always stay up to date with the content.